Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Apollo's Odyssey. I'm your host, Apolla Asteria, and tonight, tongue twister. Tonight, I'm going to be doing a show on the auroras that have been happening around the world, and geostorms in general. Maybe I'm going to get into a little history on it, and I'm going to talk about, maybe an ancient advanced civilization was actually at one time wiped out by the same kind of activity that is going on on our planet with the auroras and the geostorms. So I want to get into that a little bit tonight. I don't know if you noticed, I have a new logo in the corner here. Boom. I worked on that really hard this week, and I'm really excited about it because the other one, I don't know, wasn't really working out as much, I felt like. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. Also, I did a little new background on my show here, so that's pretty cool. Just looking at the chat here, everyone that's joining tonight. Wizard Moon, good to see you here. Jimsy, good to see you here. From Ireland, oh, that's cool. I'd like to go to Ireland someday. Someone says you are in low graphics mode. I'm sorry, but I'm actually streaming in the best possible quality I can, but the internet just isn't the greatest here, so doing my best. So yeah, also with tonight's show, I want to get into some new advancements with laser technology. Laser beams, basically that's something we're going to be dealing with a lot more here with the way basically tech is evolving in our civilization right now. So I'm going to be getting into that a little bit. Also, Australia and the United States unveiled some new undersea drones that are really sci-fi looking. I mean, they kind of look like manta submarines or something. I mean, they literally look like USOs. So it's pretty crazy. I'm going to be getting into that a little bit tonight. And so let's get started here. So just briefly, apparently scientists found a way to record echoes in the fabric of space. So let me pull that up here. 1 second. Okay, here it is. So, New Scientist today says we are about to hear echoes in the fabric of space for the very first time. Gravitational waves can be lensed by massive galaxies so that they repeat like an echo. Scientists are now readying to snare their first one and explore the cosmic secrets it holds. So here's kind of some imagery of a visual of kind of what this looks like. So did you hear the one star that died twice? In 2014, astronomers saw the explosion of the Doll supernova. Then 360 days later, it went bang again. This bizarre sequence of events was down to a phenomenon called gravitational lensing, in which massive objects warp the fabric of space enough to cause light to bend. The path of the flash from the supernova was changed in this way on its journey to us, so that portions of it took different routes and arrived at different times, almost a year apart in this extreme case. As the story shows, gravitational lensing has been around for a while, but now is about to enter a compelling new chapter. Scientists know it isn't just light that can be lensed, but gravitational waves too. It is a mind bending concept, ripples in space time themselves being distorted by the curvature of space. It is also a deeply important phenomenon that could illuminate the secret interiors of neutron stars, settle a mystery about the power of dark energy, and test gravity itself more keenly than ever. Um, and so I can't really continue much here because I'm not subscribed to this site, unfortunately. But I just think this is really fascinating because it kind of shows, and I don't know if you saw yesterday's show, but or I mean, I'm sorry, the last show I put out here, which was basically on the CIA Gateway project. But basically in the Gateway project, they were explaining that the universe or our the fabric of our material universe is kind of in this like torus field shape. So I think that's really crazy that they were actually able to start recording these echoes. Like basically it proves that concept that they're talking about, that there is a shape to space. It's not just totally endless, or at least the material aspect of it that we're in. So I think that's really interesting. And also like I think a lot of people don't realize that also there has not to be confused with the other recordings from space, which is like basically all the planets kind of emit their own frequency or vibration. So that's not what's being recorded here. It's more just basically the warp of space like ripping apart and the shape of it being like an echo coming back to us basically. So kind of different than the frequencies that planets emit that has also been recorded. And what's really interesting about that is that actually all the planets in our solar system, I believe they actually kind of emit frequencies that are each an octave that's on the regular music scale. I think it's the pentatonic scale. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And they actually all the planets in our solar system kind of emit those frequencies like perfectly. So really interesting. So moving on here. Okay, so I thought this article was really interesting when it came to basically they're talking about laser wars. Welcome to laser wars because basically, this is technology. Laser beam technology is something that we're going to be working with more and more when it comes to the militaries around the world, because I think there's a lot to plasma that we haven't even really fully tapped into yet. But let me just read a little bit of this here. So the age of the laser weapon is finally upon us. The United States Army has officially sent a pair of high energy laser weapons overseas to defend American troops and US allies against enemy drones. The service recently revealed, marking the first publicly known deployment of a directed energy system for air defense in military history. And according to a top official, those weapons are actively blasting threats out of the sky. The weapon, known as palletized high energy laser, was developed by the American defense contractor Blue Halo based on the company's 20 kilowatt Locust laser weapon system. First arrived in an unspecified location overseas and has commenced operational employment in November 2022, according to the April press release. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so a second system arrived overseas earlier this year, and while the Army initially declined to indicate where the P-HEL systems were sent and whether they had achieved a kill against an adversary drone, citing operational security concerns, the service's top acquisition official recently confirmed that the new laser weapons had in fact succeeded in neutralizing incoming threats in the Middle East. And so let me just go on to scroll down a little bit here. So, following its creation 1960 by American engineer and physicist Theodore Myman, the laser, technically an acronym for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation, also immediately becomes a futuristic weapon of choice among both sci-fi writers and military planners. This wasn't surprising while Myman touted the potential scientific applications of his discovery when he first unveiled it to the country later that year. Um, and so that's just a little bit about the inventor there. But so basically, okay, so after decades of technological progress, the US military is finally making the dream of laser weapons an operational reality. Not only has the Pentagon increasingly poured money into research and development, spending roughly 1 billion a year on at least 31 directed energy programs since 2020, but the department has also finally deployed several mature laser weapons along US forces abroad in recent years for testing. And so this article just came out today, so I wanted to share that because that just goes to show like we're living in a new world here. Things are just going to get crazier and crazier, and it's pretty cool. I mean, who knows, maybe we'll have lightsabers soon. I'd like that. Who would anyone else here like that? I know I would. But hey, maybe that's a little dangerous, or maybe we're already beyond that. If we can just shoot laser beams, then why hold one, I guess. But it sounds exciting. And this is kind of crazy because obviously they're talking about these sort of energy. I don't want to really say the word, but there's been a lot of talk about this happening from satellites. So who knows? I think there's a lot being developed here, and it's going to be interesting to see where this all goes. Okay, so moving on here. Okay, so this is really crazy. So basically, the US and Australia apparently came together to work on two projects, the Ghost Shark and the Manta Ray, which are basically these undersea drones that look like manta rays. I mean, look at this. So I love this because it's actually like the same shape as a manta ray, like probably around the same size or a little bigger. And if you're looking at this from far away, it looks like you would think probably that it's a manta ray. So pretty crazy. I guess this is some new spy technology. So I'll read a little bit of this here. Ghost Shark and Manta Ray protect the undersea realm. Sounds like the plot of a future Marvel movie, but in fact is what could be the future of Pacific naval defenses. Ghost Shark and Manta Ray are the names of prototype uncrewed underwater vehicles, UUVs or drones, introduced recently by Australia and the United States respectively. Experts say the submersibles could represent the future of undersea warfare, showing the ability to exert power while minimizing the danger to human life. The use of drones in aerial warfare has become commonplace. The US used them extensively during conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan beginning in the 1990s, and newer, cheaper drones have become key pieces of military hardware for both sides in Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Kiev has also built naval surface drones, which have inflicted heavy losses on the much larger and more expensive ships of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Okay, and so basically when they unveiled this in Australia last month, the Ghost Shark, they said is the most advanced undersea autonomous vehicle in the world. So check this out. I guess this one's the Ghost Shark. And then this one here is the Manta Ray. That one doesn't really look like a shark to me, but this definitely looks like a manta ray. This one's really cool. That's really cool. I mean, we're basically getting to like abyss status here with our technology. It's pretty incredible. So let me go down here. So the manta ray trials. So America's latest UUV entry is Northrop Grumman's manta ray, a prototype of which was tested off Southern California in February and March. The Defense Advanced Research Products Agency, DARPA, the Pentagon branch in charge of developing new technologies, says manta ray's strength is in its modularity, the ability to switch out payloads depending on the mission. It can be broken down and fit into 5 standard shipping containers, moved to where it's going to be deployed, and reassembled in the field, according to Northrop Grumman. So that's pretty incredible. And, when I look at this, it makes me think, like, I know I haven't heard anything about our government really setting up underwater bases or other countries' governments, but if you have technology like this, it'd be really cool. At least, I mean, I'm sure it'd be good, to have this for, like, our naval defense, but it would also, I'm just saying, it would be really cool if they started building some really cool underwater bases, because like, these would go down to those very easily, obviously. So that's kind of interesting, like, maybe this is something that's already going on, and it's just not leaked out there like that. But that's a great idea, to, like, have more of these vehicles readily available. And who knows, like, maybe in the future people might want to start building these sort of, like, underwater homes and communities, if this was something that went beyond just vehicles for military warfare. What if it just kind of became something where it's like anyone could just get one of these and, like, actually ride in? I know these are like drones, but if you were actually able to, like, ride around in one of these and, like, go under the water and, I don't know, like, live in an underwater community, that'd be really fascinating. Yeah, so I think that's really cool. And this actually just came out like 2 hours ago, so this is kind of breaking news right here. Okay, so looking back at the comments here, Nunu says that thing looks really wild. And Nathaniel Jordan says here, oh, should I say underwater? I do believe they have hotels underwater. Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at, is, like, I've actually seen, like, some designs for these sort of, like, underwater communities, because with my presentation I go around giving at conferences around the world the past 6 years, I kind of get into a lot of different designs of different ways of having communities, and one of them is underwater kind of bubble world kind of looking communities where obviously you would have to go underwater to get to them, but it's, like, really amazing because you could kind of be more of, like, a seafaring civilization, or that sounds ridiculous, I'm sorry, but like an underwater seafaring civilization where you can, like, we could, like, kind of live off, like, seafood, and, like, have, like, a thing that's sort of open to the elements where you could see, like, out around you from, like, your home under the ocean. Like, that'd be really crazy. And there's, like, some actually really incredible designs of these sort of community, almost like apartment things that are, like, under the ocean, that have, like, these nice, like, kind of sports areas and areas where you can, like, park your boat above and, like, come up and also see under the water, and it's all glass. Yeah, transparent domes. That's what I'm getting at here. Thanks for that, Nuno. So pretty cool stuff. And Quantum FX here says sci-fi world will start in 2026. I mean, we're already there. What's interesting about all this, and what I always find interesting about when I kind of talk about these new technologies being released on my show, is that like, I actually read before that a lot of times it's sci-fi writers who kind of come up with these different concepts, and then, like, different agencies like NASA and these different government agencies will, like, look at the concept and be like, wait, we might actually be able to create this. That was one thing that happened with space habitats. Basically every space habitat design was originally created by a sci-fi writer, and then later uh NASA or Blue Origin, these different programs, started looking into it and developing their own, and those are all in the works right now. So pretty cool stuff. So it's important, like, we need, like, the dreamers, the people that dream about these things, and there's people who do the things and invent them and actually bring them into the world. It's pretty crazy, and it always starts from sci-fi, really. It's pretty amazing. Okay, so moving on here. Okay, one more interesting thing before I get into the focus of tonight's show. Okay, so I thought this was really fascinating. So apparently, so the basis of this article is consciousness could hinge on how your brain handles metals, scientists say. New research reveals the potential link between memory formation and elemental interactions in the mind. So, the definition of consciousness is becoming ever more important as artificial intelligence continues to evolve at a rapid pace. Although some overzealous AI researchers have marveled at large language models' ability to display a convincing facsimile of consciousness, most researchers agree that humanity is many years removed from achieving artificial general intelligence, an incredibly strong AI where the consciousness of humans and AI would begin to blur. So, one reason why there is such a large discrepancy among researchers regarding when such an event might occur is that our understanding of human consciousness is far from complete, which is honestly putting it mildly. If we can't even put a finger on what makes a human consciousness, spotting such an ability within a machine seems near impossible. And so this is something I've discussed with a lot of people close to me recently, actually. You know, basically, I had a few conversations recently with people where we were discussing, is it possible to download your consciousness into, or basically your memory, like, basically like you or your memories or whatever into something else like when you die. And someone was arguing this with me that they thought it would be possible to basically at least get all of your memories and put it in there. But then it started going into this conversation where it's like, okay, if you're able to, like, how could your consciousness, like, what is you, like, what is your consciousness, how is that going to be put into something? Like, is that even possible? Because, like, first you got to understand, like, what is your consciousness, like, where is that coming from? And I think a lot of people don't think about that when it comes to, like, Neuralink and all these developments that are happening right now. Is like, what are the dangers of this? Like, I think there could be a lot of dangers of attempting to create consciousness or attach AI to consciousness, and it forming into something else. So it's interesting because this article just came out today and it's kind of getting into this. So, moving on here, a new study from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem is exploring a new perspective on the subject by digging into the role memory plays in shaping human consciousness, a marked departure from previous work that compared neural memory to computer data. It would mean that consciousness naturally arises from the evolution of memory in a biochemical sense. A global neuronal network hypothesis has been forwarded as a central tenet of consciousness. We have previously described a tripartite mechanism of neural memory in which neurons encode cognitive information within the surrounding extracellular matrix, using transmetal cations and neurotransmitters to encode emotive states. The researchers wrote in their study, which was recently published, we propose a fusion of the G and W hypothesis and the tripartite mechanism of emotive memory to describe how the brain achieves mental states of memory and emotions to experience consciousness. Sorry, 1 second here. Let me get a drink, guys. So, fusing these two neuroscience theories, the global neuronal network and the tripartite mechanism of memory, forms the basis of this new paradigm. The researchers state that this combined theory relies heavily on the biochemical metal cations found in the human brain. So apparently we're not talking about Neuralink here or something. Like, this is like the metals that are all apparently already in our brain that they're talking about. So They go on to say, we discovered that certain metals binding within the matrix can alter its structure, forming complexes that serve as the fundamental units of memory. The researchers said in a press statement, these metal complexes have the ability to interact with neurotransmitters, resulting in the formation of emotional memory units. It's this process of encoding emotive states in the extracellular matrix that diverges from the typical idea of information theory that underlies computer based information. These memory units, unified by structural units in the brain, add depth and significance to a human's conscious experience. So, this is kind of crazy here because it's like they're basically saying that it's our relationship to the metal in our brains that are a part of the matrix that is why how we have consciousness, or how we have like a how like why memory is important, like basically the reason why we have a consciousness. They think that they can go into that somehow and take it or manipulate it. So I don't know. This is really interesting, especially when you bring in Neuralink and these different technologies into this. Like, these are metal. Like, obviously, it's going to be some type of metal, I'm sure, that they're putting in there, and it's kind of interacting. Apparently, like these things are going to be interacting with the metals that are already in our brains. So this exploration is more than just a philosophical exercise or an effort to better understand artificial consciousness. Having a deeper understanding of this consciousness making mechanism can have a big impact on people in the here and now. This proposed mechanism sheds light on how disturbances in metal levels could potentially impact memory functions. Obviously, that's important because a lot of people have been suffering from Alzheimer. They're also seeing that it's possible that autism may be linked to the way metal is being handled in the body. And, I don't think I have to say, there's a lot out there that can cause us to have metal in our bodies, which people should be aware of. I'll leave it at that. I think you should know what I'm talking about. Okay, so just going back to the comments here. Oh, sorry, I let that comment on for a long time. So New here says, it seems to me I had a consciousness before my brain, before I was born. That is my memory. I agree. Like, I don't know. To me, I think it's kind of ridiculous that scientists want to try to break this down and understand what consciousness is, because I don't think consciousness is a physical thing. And they're trying to see it as like, how can we see it as something physical so we can work with it? But I don't think it is physical. I think it's beyond that. But, I think it is very likely that, people could take their memories and, their genetic DNA makeup and maybe reactivate it so elsewhere in like a computer hard drive or quartz hard drive or something like that. But, like, what is animating you in the first place? Like, there's something else there. Like, this is where things get scary. It's like when people start messing with this stuff, this is when, you know, zombies take over. Who knows? So that's my personal opinion. And I'm just going through the comments here. It's pretty interesting. Nathaniel Jordan says here, that reminds me of that chip they put on the first guy who had surgery to install a chip. I'm not sure what that's about. Okay, so basically with tonight's show, I want to get into the GEOSTORM, the auroras that have been happening around the planet, because it's interesting. Like, our sun is going through these certain cycles, and basically we're moving into a cycle now. I believe it's the 27 cycle, where like our sun has these natural cycles, and this is a cycle where it heats up more, and this is supposed to be like the most it's been heating up in a while. And basically it's going to be like going through all this activity. So I kind of wanted to get into that, and then a past event, which is the Carrington event, which you may have heard about. I'm going to briefly cover that and then go a little deeper into this. So what to start with here? Okay, wait. First of all, I got a video in from someone where basically, apparently, they saw a fleet of UFOs during their aurora. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this here and see what you guys think of it in the comments. Please let me know what you think. Okay, obviously, it doesn't really look like much at first. But then they zoom in here and watch this. Okay, wait, hold on. Okay, so you see, they're kind of hard to see, but like these kind of like lights, once they zoom in, these lights kind of keep moving. I think this is this video is being reversed and zoomed in. But as you can see, there's these kind of like lights moving through the aurora. It's like, these people, they're just filming the sky, obviously, because the aurora is happening and they're capturing this. Like, that just goes to show that you can probably, capture some pretty incredible events going on in the sky all the time if you're just ready and open and out there looking at the sky and filming. It's like, how often do people really spend the whole night looking at the sky? You see some pretty crazy stuff when you do that, especially if you're in an area that's very active and has clear skies. But it almost looks like a fleet of balls of light, something like that. So that's really interesting. Pretty cool stuff. Okay. Okay, so apparently the geostorms are gonna keep happening tonight. And into the week, because just today it was just released that another coronal mass ejection happened from a sunspot, and it may be larger than the last one, I guess. So this just came out a few hours ago today. Sun emits its largest X-class flare of the solar cycle as officials warn burst from massive sunspot not done yet. The giant solar explosions of energy and light aren't over yet. Officials said on Tuesday that the sun just emitted another major solar flare, and that it's the strongest one so far in the current solar cycle. The latest flare peaked just before 1 p.m. Eastern Time at NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center, and they said it was a X-class rating of X8.7. X-class solar flares are the strongest of solar flares, which are described by NASA as giant explosions on the sun that send energy, light, and high-speed particles into space. The center said the flare was an R3 or strong flare, meaning it could have caused wide area blackouts of high-frequency radio communications for about an hour on the sunlit side of Earth. It may also have caused a low-frequency navigation signal issues for the same period of time. So moving on here. So this is what I was trying to explain earlier with the cycles. So Earth is currently in solar cycle 25, which began in 2020. The last cycle maintained an average length of 11 years and was the weakest solar cycle to occur in a century, the National Weather Service said. Although the current cycle has been forecast to be fairly weak and similar to the one prior, NOAA officials saw a steady increase in sunspot activity from the get-go. We're not predicting a particularly active solar cycle 25. Violet eruptions from the sun can occur at any time. And so apparently, besides just these regular cycles that the sun is in, and I know I've heard this before. I've read this quite a bit before, but I couldn't really find any articles on it today. But basically, the sun is kind of going through this part in the universe, from what I've heard, where it's going to be acting up and kind of emitting new light or new colors of light. I know I've read an article about this before. I tried to find it today, but apparently it's letting out these new colors of light that where it's going through in the universe, because it's like our solar system, it's moving, obviously rotating through a certain part, in the galaxy. And apparently when it goes through this area, that particular area that we're in right now, and it's in the cycle that it's in right now, it's going to be more active. It's going to start heating up more, and it's going to start kind of sending out different types of energy, basically. So really interesting, because this kind of takes you back to, like, has this happened before? Could this be a problem? Has this been a problem in the past? So I want to talk about the Carrington event, just kind of briefly cover that in case some of you aren't aware of that, because who knows, we could experience this in the coming days here, so it's good to be aware. So, mysteries of the Carrington Event, the largest solar superstorm in modern times, unraveled by tree rings. In the annals of astronomy, few events have captured the imagination quite like the Carrington Event of 1859. Named after the amateur astronomer Richard Carrington, who first observed it, this solar superstorm sent shockwaves through the scientific community and left a lasting impact on our understanding of the sun's power. A March 2024 study by an international team of researchers sheds new light on the cosmic cataclysm. Okay, so to understand the significance of this discovery, we first need to take a step back and explore what makes the Carrington event so special. On September 1st, 1859, Carrington was observing sunspots on the sun's surface when he witnessed an intense burst of white light, a solar flare. This flare was just the beginning of a cascade of events that would send a massive cloud of charged particles hurtling towards Earth, triggering what we now know as a geomagnetic storm. Whoa. Add here. Sorry about that. Okay. The impact of the solar onslaught was felt around the globe. Auroras, typically confined to polar regions, were seen as far south as Cuba and Hawaii. And what's interesting is, actually here in Hawaii, there was part of the aurora was actually seen on one side of the island here, apparently for like 5 minutes, which is pretty crazy. Apparently it only happened this time before that. So that just goes to show we're in a pretty crazy event right now. So when this happened, telegraph systems went haywire, with operators reporting receiving electric shocks and seeing sparks fly from their equipment. Some even claimed that they could send messages without connecting their batteries. What? Okay, they said they could send messages without connecting their batteries. That's crazy. So it was like the power of the storm was actually able to charge their technology. I mean, that's pretty nuts. Okay, so in the 164 years... Oh, wait, okay. Sorry, just 1 second here. And so this just kind of goes to show that, this could be something that can happen again. And I'm just going through this quickly here to see if there's anything else that I want to get into with this. Okay. Nothing too important. Okay. So basically what's interesting about this is, this could happen anytime. And if that event would have happened then, if that would have happened now, it would have been really bad, because it would have knocked out GPS systems. It would have knocked out, basically everything we use today, all of our devices. Like, nothing would have been working properly. Probably, I believe, like Wi-Fi, I don't know, like basically like anything we use, it would not have been working, and that would have been really bad. So and for who knows how long. I mean, I think from what I've heard, this could be something where, if it's powerful to a certain degree, if it's powerful enough, it could just kind of knock out and kind of fry out all technology all at once, and then it'd be like kind of hard to rebuild it. So that's why I wanted to talk about this happening in the past on tonight's show, because it can happen again. And I think it's very likely that that maybe there was an ancient advanced civilization on the planet before, like basically if like an event like this had happened in the past, like what if we did have civilizations in the past that had the kind of technology we have now, or maybe a little different than what we have now. But if an event like that happened and it wipes out, basically all the technology on the planet was not operating the same anymore, it would go into mass chaos. People, there would be wars, it'd be mass chaos. There'd probably be looting and rioting and all kinds of things that would happen. And, the people, and then, that could be a really bad event. I mean, that could be something that a civilization couldn't come back from. And obviously metal rusts after 200 years, wood rots after I think like 100 years or something. So what would be left from a civilization like that if from our civilization now, say, if something like that happened? So something to think about. And I'm going to kind of read this article by Gaia here on that. Okay, so obviously this kind of goes into the Carrington event again here at the beginning of this article. But so moving into this, the discovery implies that these types of severe solar storm events occur more frequently than previously believed and may support Dr. Robert Schoch's theory on a solar-induced extinction event that wiped out several advanced ancient civilizations. Researchers have made some fascinating breakthroughs studying Greenland's ice sheet lately, including the discovery of two massive 12,000-year-old asteroid impact craters, which researchers like Graham Hancock point to as the catalyst for the Younger Dryas period, an anachronistic ice age caused by dust and sediment thrown into the atmosphere which blocked out the sun. Schoch says he believes the Younger Dryas suddenly ended when a massive solar storm such as a CME scorched the planet and led to the rapid melting of ice, causing global flooding and an inhospitable climate. What Schoch has dubbed a solar-induced dark age, or SIDA, the intense heat and plasma outbursts from the sun caused further extinction of civilizations that survived the ice age while forcing remaining survivors to retreat below the ground. And obviously we have a lot of, kind of evidence of this, of civilizations going underground. There's a lot of talk on it. Like the Native Americans, they all have stories of, like their the stories where they talk about the ant people, quote unquote, but they say that they went underground, especially the Hopis, I believe, are the ones who said they went underground for a while to hide from what was going on the surface. And they kind of like went into these cave systems in the American Southwest. I know in Turkey, they actually they built a deep underground city, and it's really incredible and expansive. So, this is something that obviously I think happened before. I think civilizations remember this. There was like one thing that comes to mind for me is the steps of the Temple of Hathor. That's something that's always brought up, is why are the steps on the Temple of Hathor in Egypt just completely melted down? The stone is melted down. What would melt down stone? Like, see, so this is what I'm saying. If an event like this happened that was that bad, where it wasn't just wiping out the technology, but also just basically scorched the surface of the earth, the only way you could really survive is if you went underground, or if you were in like a stone temple, that like the ones we see around the world, that these megalithic structures that have been built around the world. And it makes you wonder, it's like, is there a reason why people built these back in ancient times? I don't think it was just because they thought they looked cool. I think they put a lot of time and energy into these structures because of something that happened, and they had a purpose for them. And I think maybe there were a lot of purposes for them. But moving on here, Schoch says one sees evidence of this in some of the oldest ruins on Earth, including the megalithic statues at Göbekli Tepe in Easter Island, which are not only buried below ground, but also show carvings that Schoch says he believes depict the solar phenomena these ancient people witnessed in the atmosphere. Underground caves and shelters in the Cappadocia region of Anatolia, Turkey, is further evidence of Schoch's theory, which he says may be the key to our discovery of evidence for famously elusive antediluvian civilizations such as Atlantis. And for those of you who don't know, obviously antediluvian means predating the Great Flood, or the flood. Um, According to Skoke, sorry, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Low-lying, thick stone shelters with narrow entries, much like fallout shelters or bunkers, have been found in these areas, further supporting the idea that these people attempted to protect themselves from some aerial catastrophe. The latest study appears to lend credence to Skoke's theory, as radioactive atoms, beryllium 10, chlorine 36, and carbon 14, caused by extensive radiation from solar protons, were discovered in ice core samples, suggesting these types of solar storms happen way more often than once thought, and with much greater intensity. Both Skoke's and Hancock's theories have been labeled heretical and pseudoscientific, but with more corroborating evidence such as this, their cases continue to strengthen. Meanwhile, the stalwarts of archaeology continue to disregard this mounting evidence. So, yeah, definitely very interesting. This is something that we have to look at. Obviously, our sun is kind of going into these cycles where it's heating up again, and they say that the apex of it is supposed to be in 2025. July 2025 is when it's supposed to like reach its peak. So we haven't even reached the peak of it yet. But obviously, like it said in the articles I was reading earlier, these can happen anytime. It doesn't really matter what part of the sun's cycles they're in, but it's going to be going through a part in the cycle where it's going to be heating up more. And this is going to be happening more often. So something to look at here, and like, why is it important that we look at this? Because, like maybe we need to be prepared. We need to have backup with our, the way that we communicate, the way we get around, GPS, things like that. Like we need to look into, like what if there was a CME that was a very strong blast? Like what would you do if you knew that was happening? You couldn't like just go in your house and hide. Like you'd have to kind of try to get underground or go in a stone structure somewhere, obviously. So, I mean, it makes you wonder, it's like, why are all these billionaires building bunkers underground? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons for that, but it's smart. Like, if something like this could happen at any time, it would be smart to be able to have one of those to go underground, get away from it. I'm not sure, if a CME did happen, how long it actually lasts. Like, if this would be something that would kind of screw up the surface of the earth for so long, or the atmosphere for so long, that you couldn't even, breathe properly in the air. Like, I'm not really sure how that would all go down, but definitely smart. Some of these people have bunkers, that, and they would be the ones that would survive if something like this did happen. It would be like, obviously these people who went to these lengths to have this sort of backup, they would be the ones repopulating the planet. So kind of interesting. I guess survival of the fittest. All right, well, before I get going here, I'm going to share my art, which is on shamanspears.com, because I have a new collection out and it's pretty incredible. Oh, let me just share this here before I share my commercial. But the new collection is the Elemental Collection. As you may or may not know, I basically make a new collection like twice a year, maybe once a year now, like depending on how time goes. So it's pretty incredible. Whenever I come out with a new collection, it just kind of feels like a new era. So this collection was kind of more earthy themed, and I still have more of my last collection, which is the Ultraviolet collection, available. So here's a new Spear commercial. You've felt it, haven't you? The energy around you, pulsing with potential. But sometimes you need a bridge, a way to tap into that power. Introducing Shaman Spears. These handcrafted energy channeling devices are more than tools, they're extensions of yourself. Each bamboo staff is meticulously filled with magnetic and quartz materials designed to amplify your own energy. The sacred symbols passed down through generations act as a conduit, focusing your intentions. Shaman Spears. Not just a wand, not just a spear, but an ancient future fusion. Feel the power course through you. Unleash your potential. Visit www.shamanspears.com and claim your shaman spear today. Oh, and I also want to say this wasn't in the commercial, but the scroll I'm holding up there, basically anyone who purchases a spear gets a scroll, which is kind of like a certificate, talks about what it means to have one. So pretty cool stuff. Make sure you check that out. Also, please remember to subscribe if you haven't already. All right. Thanks everyone for joining tonight, and until next time, over and out.